A massive week lies ahead of us. Important economic data, a speech by Jerome Powell. We have new purchases from Michael Saylor. We have a Bitcoin price that's just drifting along, acting more like a stablecoin right now than the classic number-go-up vehicle we usually know, with all that massive volatility. But this could bring a massive institutional flow into Bitcoin. And we have Binance founder CZ talking about how we're not even in a bull market yet. Are we maybe just at the beginning of the cycle? Is the explosive phase still ahead of us? We're going to take a look at all of this. So hit that like button. Take a second for higher Bitcoin prices, for peace and freedom. And as a thank you, I'll show you the awesome support here too. Check this out. Out here, someone is riding by on a boat. And here you can see my boat. That's the boat I always use. Whenever I have too many Bitcoins at the moment, I just take the boat out, then the boat sinks again. And I lose all my Bitcoins, so I have to start from scratch. Super bullish. And the founder of Binance makes a very interesting observation here. CZ, which really captures the current market sentiment perfectly. He says here, hey, my followers grew from 9 to 10 million really fast. Now, at 10 million, things have kind of stalled. Nothing seems to be moving forward anymore. Is it normal that there aren't any new people coming into Bitcoin right now? Or could it be that the real bull run, the real bull market, hasn't even started yet? Because we always see a very strong correlation between new subscribers and rising Bitcoin prices. That means, when new people enter the Bitcoin space, the Bitcoin price also goes up. And we can also see right now, as shown in YouTube statistics and so on, not just on this channel, but globally on all channels, whether in the German or English space, and so on. Everything related to Bitcoin that's being pushed on YouTube, X, and so on, just isn't in as much demand at the moment as it was in previous bull markets. That means we still have a lot of room to grow here. CZ also mentions it again here. He often uses follower growth to see whether we're really at the peak of a bull run. And if we use this metric, then we're still so far from a peak. I mean, sure, according to the 4-year cycle theory, this would basically be the last phase of the bull run that's just starting now. But if we look at the follower growth numbers, then we're probably not even at the start of a bull run yet, though I don't want to guarantee that's the case. But yeah, that's definitely pretty crazy. We can also see here the Bitcoin spot ETFs, which saw strong inflows again last week. I also mentioned that BlackRock finally bought over 2,000 Bitcoin again. I already reported that last week as well. Almost $900 million flowed into these investment products. The cumulative net inflows since approval in January 2024 are now around $57.7 billion, setting a new all-time high. But we still haven't reached the really intense accumulation phases that we've seen in the past. But maybe we're slowly starting to pick up speed here, which gives hope for higher Bitcoin prices. And we'll get to Saylor and company in a moment. But right now, we're seeing massive events coming up. Next week, Powell's speech, Jerome Powell, that is. It's not about lowering interest rates next week, but rather he'll just give you insights into the current monetary policy. That's always very interesting. It's always really exciting to see what questions get asked here. So, what will Jerome Powell be asked here? Could that trigger volatility? Absolutely yes. We'll have to wait and see. We've also seen Steven Neron hinting at wanting to cut rates by 50 basis points. So that's definitely going to be very interesting here. Then we have PMI, services and manufacturing, and then US GDP data. That will also be exciting again, and could trigger volatility, just like the initial jobless claims. So this is more or less about the overall economy or the labor market that's at stake here. And that's a crucial factor here for interest rate policy as well. If the labor market weakens, if the economy weakens here, that has a big impact on interest rates. That means the worse the economy, the worse the labor market, the more positively the Bitcoin price will react, because then interest rate cuts are expected, which means more liquidity will flow in. We've also seen now that the 25 basis point rate cut wasn't really enough to send Bitcoin or other assets to the moon yet. It simply needs more than that, and that's what a lot of people are currently hoping and waiting for. And then the next relevant figure this Friday, Core PC Price Index. And why is this important? Because the inflation data is crucial. If inflation is under control, then interest rates could be cut further. That means, ideally, next week we'd see weak labor market data and good inflation data. And then the Bitcoin price will probably get a short-term boost, because the likelihood of rate cuts, or bigger rate cuts than planned, will increase again. And then we see Michael Saylor here saying, the orange dots go up and to the right. That means he's announcing new purchases here. So we're really curious to see what kind of purchases he's going to make here. Last week, I think he only bought Bitcoin through the preferreds, not through ATM dilution at all. I'm not completely sure anymore, but I actually think that's the case. Yeah, that's really interesting. It's always like this. Whenever there are certain weaknesses or when there's a kind of compression like right now, everyone starts questioning Strategy's business model again. Is it going to collapse now? This, that, and the other. And then, when the Bitcoin price shoots up, Strategy usually jumps up 2 or 3 times as much. So that's completely normal. These are just downward or sideways periods. Often, of course, Strategy performs worse than the Bitcoin price during these times. And then all the voices get loud again. Hey, blah blah blah, everything's about to crash. But honestly, I'm not really worried about it right now. You just have to understand how the game works here. I'm not just bullish on Bitcoin, but also on Strategy. And you can see that in things like this. I mean, the world's largest sovereign wealth fund, with a volume of $2 trillion US dollars, apparently owns $1.1 billion US dollars worth of MicroStrategy shares. You can see it here. And you really have to ask yourselves, if a sovereign wealth fund, which is usually pretty conservative, is buying large shares in Strategy, do you really think this is all just some kind of empty hype and that they're on the verge of collapse, like so many people always claim? I mean, Michael Saylor also said this in his last interview with Natalie Brunell, that sometimes fake news is deliberately spread to create uncertainty, so that short sellers can cover their positions and people who are betting on a falling Strategy or Bitcoin price can make money through liquidations. That's absolutely clear. This doesn't just happen with Strategy, but also with Bitcoin in general. There's a lot of fake news being used here. Here we see the Swiss Central Bank, which also has, what is it, 258 million. 258. Yes, $258 million in Strategy shares. And it's exactly the same story. Big players like this are stocking up on Strategy. So the real question here is, if this were so shady, why are all the big players buying Strategy shares? Sure, some people might say it's just a market-neutral diversification they're doing or something like that. And Strategy has now reached such a size that you need to have Strategy in every portfolio. Yeah, that could be the case. What I also found really interesting here, and what absolutely speaks in favor of the Bitcoin price, is this right here, what we're seeing now. So, there was someone here, a Montreal lottery winner. She won the lottery in Montreal, and she could choose whether she wanted $1 million US dollars right away or 100,000 US dollars immediately. Let me know in the comments below which one you would have chosen. Anyway, Brenda decides to take $1,000 right away. And now? Yeah, I'm really curious to see what you wrote in the comments below. Because honestly, it's a total bratwurst move to take the $1,000 for life, basically. Oh, what did I just say? Did I? I'm not even sure if I just said it wrong. So, you either get $1,000 every month, or you get $1 million all at once. And if you take the $1,000, which you get every month for your whole life, the problem is, in 10 or 20 years, that $1,000 won't be worth anything anymore. And it's the same thing with Strategy. Saylor also has the perpetual preferred shares, which basically pay a dividend for life, or not necessarily for life, but basically with no limit. Of course, Saylor could buy back the preferred shares, but basically, with no limit, he just pays a fixed rate. And of course, he does it because he knows, okay, maybe now he's paying $12 a quarter or $12 a year, or however it's been agreed upon. And it might seem like a lot at first, but in 10, 20, 30 years or so, those $12 per year, or whatever you have to pay depending on the product, will eventually be worth so little that it's almost laughable to pay back those $12. And it'll be the same for her with those $1,000 she's getting. Sure, right now you might still be able to buy a bratwurst with it. In 10 years or so, you probably won't even be able to buy a bratwurst with it anymore. And on the other hand, if you take that grand now and put it all into Bitcoin, just like that, smash, buy all Bitcoin, ideally right here at 21 Bitcoin, use the code BitcoinHotel, and save up to 20% on fees when buying Bitcoin. I'll put a link down below if you just want to buy Bitcoin safely and simply. If you throw $1 million in here right away and switch it to Bitcoin, I mean, in 10 years, who knows? Your purchasing power could increase 10-fold, 50-fold, 20-fold. I don't know. But in any case, your purchasing power will be higher than it is now. And now Samson Moe comes into the whole equation and talks about dollar sat parity. Pretty crazy. That means $1 equals 1 Satoshi, and 1 Satoshi is 1/1,000,000th of a Bitcoin. So 0.000000001 Bitcoin or something like that is a Satoshi. I hope I didn't say too many or too few zeros just now. Yeah, just think about that.
As Bitcoin becomes the new world reserve asset, the price will go up. It'll go to 1 million. It'll go to 10, and then it'll reach dollar sat parity. And probably before that happens, we hit a terminus point where, you stop pricing things in dollars because it doesn't make sense anymore. And there's tons of historical examples of this, right? Like fast failure of fiat currencies is the norm. It's not the exception. Look at the German mark, right? That's fast fail. Every fiat currency fast fails. It doesn't fail over 50 to 100 years, except for maybe the dollar. It's failed over 100 years, but it's coming to the close. But as it increases in value, then of course you see less volatility because it takes more to make a dent. If you go back to, I think last year, right, the Saxony government in Germany, they dumped 50,000. And that made a bigger impact than the 80,000. So you can already see in a very short time frame a far more muted effect of coins being dropped.
And I think that's already a really, really bold assessment of Bitcoin. But I can actually go along with it. I mean, nobody knows how quickly this will happen, but that it will happen is already very, very likely. That first will rise to 1 million, then to 10 million, reach dollar sat parity. And that there will also be certain tipping points where fiat currencies will simply fail overnight. The euro is also once again running into massive problems here, with France, a state crisis, and so on and so forth. We don't need to go into detail about that in this video. And then he also says that the liquidity in Bitcoin keeps getting more and more intense. In the past, when 50,000 Bitcoin were sold in Germany, it still affected the market. Now, with the 80,000 Bitcoin that were sold, it made less and less of a difference. That means Bitcoin is also maturing. Bitcoin is going up, and if you don't have any Bitcoin now, you've probably lost control over your life. But it's also very important, even if you have Bitcoin, not to leave them lying around on exchanges, but always to move them to your own hardware wallet and be self-sovereign. Not your keys, not your coins. That's why I'm putting a link below for a TREZOR hardware wallet. Here you can easily and securely manage your Bitcoin in a self-custodial way. Absolutely recommended. Check it out. Use the code BitcoinHotel to get 10% off a TREZOR hardware wallet. And I'll see you soon. See you then. Peace out.